everyone. Welcome to the Mentor Zoom for mentors working with second-year teachers. It is quarter four, and I'm so glad you had a chance to attend the live session. I'm going to drop the attendance link into the chat. If you're watching the recording, you know the drill. Go to the email. All the links will be there for you. There's the attendance link. And while you're doing that, I want to let you know that it's that time of year when the PD department surveys all of our teachers. So and the mentoring program doesn't escape those surveys. So I'm going to drop a survey in, and really this is to give me some information on how your year went and how we can make the program better. And so in addition to the attendance link is the survey link. And so let me give you about 5 minutes to complete that. Again, if you're watching the recording, go back to the email and the survey link will be there waiting for you. Do you need a little more time to complete the survey, or are you ready to move on? Callie's ready to move on. Lisa, you need a little more time? Okay, perfect. All right, Kelly and I were just talking about being on the home stretch. So everyone except for Kelly is on the home stretch. However, in the mentoring world, Kelly, you are on the home stretch because you just have one more classroom visit cycle to do. So while you're thinking about doing that last classroom visit cycle, I want to remind you to document your mentor work as evidence for 4D, participating in the professional community, and 4E, growing and developing professionally. Those are your work with your mentee is an excellent piece of evidence to support those professional responsibilities, domain 4 in general, but specifically 4D and 4E. So just make yourself a note to include that in your evidence documents. All right. I'm sure you know the classroom visit cycle by now. You've got the pre-conference, where you set the focus for the visit. The classroom visit is where you get the opportunity to be a witness to the good, take your data, and then the post-conference is where all the reflection happens. So I know you're super familiar with this process, but I always like to revisit the cycle. All right, for this Zoom session, we are going to go over the remaining data collection forms that are on the data collection menu that I have not gone over yet. So also, I was going to drop in the electronic version of the data collection menu. I don't know, you have options as far as using the electronic version. You can make a copy of the forms from the link that I just dropped into the chat, or you can use the binders that I set out. I really like those binders because you can sit with your mentee and you can kind of flip through, and it gives your mentee the examples to look at, and it just gives everyone more information. And I think the samples help as well. So, okay, let's go ahead and get going on the last remaining forms that I have not yet talked about. The first one I want to talk about is the consistent corrections chart. It measures corrections that are applied to students who are not following expectations, and it calculates a percentage of consistency. So when teachers issue corrections inconsistently, allowing like side conversations to go unchecked, or complaining, or letting students complain about their teacher, it just creates unfairness in the classroom. Consistent corrections is super important, especially for newer teachers. This form only works when a teacher has explicitly set expectations for behavior. And one of my favorite sayings is, if you expect it, then you must inspect it. So this is an opportunity to inspect corrections happening in the classroom. That inspection is often a correction which reinforces the expectation to the entire class. So let's look at that. Let's look at this form. You'll notice here that on the sample, if your mentee wanted to use this form, you would weed out some of the behaviors that you see are not being reinforced. For example, this particular example calls out side conversations, calling out of seat, rude, disrespectful behavior, bothering others, and off task. Now, in a perfect world, you would have already talked with your mentee at the pre-meeting to figure out what really is what really do you want me to take data? This is just a sample of some inconsistencies that happen in classrooms, but you would want to weed out what exactly does your mentee want to shine the focus on. So, so this sample was tallying those times when the expectation wasn't being reinforced. And so you can see that you would tally the observed misbehaviors, and then you would tally the corrected behaviors so that you can get a percentage. So this particular example, the teacher corrected 14 out of 21 corrections, or 14 out of 21 inconsistent behaviors were corrected to come out to a 67%. So this is an opportunity for a teacher to really shine the spotlight on corrections and attending to misbehavior, which I think is, I want to say it's 2D in the evaluation, but that's here nor there, but it does definitely fall into the classroom management forms that are available. All right, so that's the consistent corrections chart, and it calculates a percentage of consistency. It doesn't calculate the percentage of inconsistency. So going back to the example, this example calculated 67% of incorrect behaviors were corrected. So that data would obviously provide some conversation. The next one is called the Academic Engagement Monitoring Form. It's identical to time on task. Remember when we talked about the 3 different kinds of engagement? Engagement can be it can be behavioral engagement, it can be effective engagement, or it can be cognitive behavior. So this really, although it's titled academic engagement, what it's really looking at is time on task. And it's that one that you look at each student. So if you were taking data using this form, you would start the clock for 10 minutes. Or is this one I think this one is 5 minutes, excuse me. You would start the clock for 5 minutes, and then you would look at each student for 10 seconds. So you would start at one student, look at them for 10 seconds. Are they academically engaged? If they are, you put the plus. After 10 seconds, you go to the next student. You would monitor that student for 10 seconds. Are they or aren't they academically engaged? And then you would go to each student for the 5 minutes until you get to the end, and then you would add up the pluses and the minuses, and then that would give you a percentage of academic engagement inside on the classroom. So again, this form measures whether students are engaged, and then and you calculate a percentage. So again, to start a conversation with your mentee, and it's identical to the time on task. The next one is teacher talk versus student talk. So research shows that teachers should limit their speaking to 20 to 30%. Students should be talking about 80% of the time. Hattie identified class discussions as a strategy that has a high impact on student achievement. It has a 0.82 effect size. So anything over the 0.4 hinge point has an impact on student learning, and good rule of thumb is to implement some kind of change after 10 minutes. So when you think about transitioning from teacher talk to student talk, after every 10 minutes is a good rule of thumb practice. For focus to continue, there must be some kind of change in the way the brain is dealing with the information. So that change could be a turn and talk, it could be a group discussion, it could be a check for understanding, it could be a question to the group, or an activity. So just remember that research shows that students should limit their speaking to 20 to 30%. Students should be talking 80% of the time. So let's have a good look at this example that you're looking at. The form measures teacher versus student talk. And so if you were using this form and you had the form in front of you, you would log the amount of time in minutes that the teacher is talking versus the student is talking. So this example looks like the first thing the teacher gave was instructions, and then she turned them loose to a writing activity. Then they watched a video, then she turned them loose to a turn and talk for 4 minutes. So 3 minutes to 7 minutes, Then they watched a video, 12 minutes to 4 minutes turn and talk. And then again, she gave more instructions for 6 minutes. There was some partner reading for 18 minutes. She did some question and answer for 10 minutes. And then that happened for, it looks like, 20 minutes. So you can calculate a percentage of how much time the teacher is talking and how much time the students are talking. And this particular piece of data, it looks like the teacher was talking 44% of the time, while the students were talking 56% of the time. So those percentages and the research could generate some good conversations amongst your mentee if she or he wanted to shine the spotlight on teacher talk versus student talk. Okay, I've been talking a lot, like nonstop, for the last, I don't know, looks like 10 minutes. So maybe I should stop and open the platform for questions on any of the forms that I've presented to you so far.
Could the teachers choose which one they want as we look through and have our pre-discussion? They don't have to just do these, but so I
Nope.
kind of look through have them kind of discuss
Yeah.
what they're liking to look at, and then we look at the observations to see what would match.
That's great. That's exactly the intent behind that binder, is to have the mentee, the teacher, peruse those to generate some ideas. Because, I mean, we're talking about teachers in their second year. They're not familiar with all these forms. So it just gives them some ideas. And hopefully while they're perusing those pages, it just gives them ideas of things that they want to, you know, that maybe some forms that they'd like for you to take data on. So yay, Lisa, I'm glad you're using that binder as intended. Last year, so those binders are new this year. So I think every year I kind of, you know, I realize what's gonna make it more streamlined for mentors and mentees. So I really think the binders are a good addition. All right, so let's move on. Now, this is the last forms I'm going to talk about, and it's actually the last forms on the data collection menu. So these are engagement forms, and it gives the students an opportunity to respond and give feedback on their engagement. So this really lends itself to that effective engagement. Do students like what the teacher is teaching? And so the 4 forms, they're very similar. They look a little different. The first one is it has, you know, it has an emoji on there. So the students could circle the emoji that they liked. And then the idea behind it would be for them to write what would make the lesson better. Same thing with the second one, except it uses some different language, what would make learning more engaging. So like the first one might be for primary, intermediate students. The second one would be more for students that are a little older and could handle that higher level vocabulary. And then the third one allows students to rate their engagement of the lesson on a 1 to 7 scale. And there's some lines there for them to write and give that feedback. And then the last one, kind of hidden behind that little star, and at the end of the day comments that I like to give on these, that particular one, it allows the students to rate their level of engagement at 10-minute intervals throughout the class. So the idea behind this one is that the teacher has like some kind of timer, and every 10 minutes that timer goes off, and then the students rate their level of engagement. And it looks like there's lots of opportunities for them to do that. If they're rating that engagement every 10 minutes, there's probably enough lines on there to gather data for an hour, maybe 2 hours. That's the longest I think anybody could do that one for sure. So anyway, those are some additional ones that might lend themselves to secondary classrooms, just because feedback to the teacher is important. And teachers need that feedback, because at the end of the day, student opinions can and should drive instruction. We don't always have control over what we teach, but we do have control over how we deliver it, and that feedback could help the delivery of instruction. So those engagement forms are available in the data collection menu for your use. All right, so that's all the content that I wanted to talk about. Now it's time to check out to make sure that you have your pre and post conference forms. I know they're there because I double checked. However, I want to make sure that you guys can get to them. So if you could get into your drive, make sure you have your pre and post conference forms. And then while you're doing that, if you feel good to go and you're ready to log off, feel free. Otherwise, I will be here to answer any questions. But before we log off, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the hard work you've done with your mentee. I know that your mentees have benefited from your support and your guidance for the last 2 years, and I thank you so much for your work with them.
Hey, Michelle, I can still do lesson look fors, right?
Of course, yes.
Okay.
I'll put one of those. I think there's one of them. I think I dropped them in the folders for you this time. If you don't have a lesson look for in your quarter 1, 2, and 3 folder, I'll get one to you. But absolutely, you can do the lesson look fors.
Okay. All right. And I think I might have even made a copy of one.
Is there one there, or I'm happy to drop one in for you?
Let me just look, because I just opened up.
I just don't remember.
I had 2 for April for some reason, and I opened the wrong one.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle.
Yes, yes. And Lisa, stay on because I wanted to talk to you about something.
Yep.
So Kelly, if you don't see it, I'll get one to you. Don't worry.
Okay.
As soon as we get done with this call, this Zoom, I will get in there and I'll make sure you have one. Don't waste your time looking for it. It is my job to make sure you have everything you need. I will make sure there's one sitting there right next to the quarter 4 pre and post conference forms for you to use.
Okay, that would be great.
Yes.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it.
All right. Do you have any other questions or issues?
Nope, everything's going great.
All right. Thanks so much, Kelly.
Thank you. Have a
good night.
Good night.
So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop the recording for now. You know, I just wanted to chat with you a minute about. All right, everyone, it's 3:45. Welcome to the Mentor Zoom for second year mentors. All right, now, let's see here. I clicked record and I wasn't ready because I'm missing something that I need. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. All right, here, I'm going to stop the recording. I'm going to start again. Welcome to my world.
No.
I wasn't ready.
Yeah, look, we have lots of those in teaching, don't we? Well, that didn't work. Let's try again. Yep.
It's, you know, when I'm doing a video, it's absolutely brutal, just brutal, because I'm so self-critical, you know, and like, I don't like the way that sounds, and I don't like the way that sounds, and I'll redo and redo, and I'll just drive myself crazy until I'm just like, it's gonna be what it's gonna be.
Yep.
So these live recordings are they're just better.
Yeah, they are. But it still works. I mean, if you can't be there, like, to me, it actually worked nice. I mean, I could rewind stuff and look again and, you know.
Yeah.
Sorry, we have this.
This is your last call for all yellow.
No worries. So I'm gonna start again, like, you know, like I didn't start
Okay.
before.
I guess I can mute myself.
All right. Welcome to the Mentor Zoom for second year teachers. We are at, we're on the home stretch to the end. It is a week after spring break. So the first thing I'm going to ask everyone to do is to record your attendance. I'm dropping the attendance link into the chat. And if you are watching this recording, remember that all the links are on that email that you got the recording from. So just go on back to your email and grab that link and record your attendance. While you're doing that, I want to let you know that, as always, there is a survey. It's the survey time of year in the PD department, and the mentor program doesn't escape the survey either. So I do have a survey for you. This is probably the last time I'm going to see you for the year, unless I see you out in the sites. So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to do this survey. And I just dropped it into the chat. If you are watching the recording, run on back to the email and grab that link and do the survey as well.